Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the high-stakes world of corporate auditing, a process that really underpins all the trust we place in the financial markets.
It's a super important question for any of us, right? Whether you're an investor, an employee, or a partner. And the answer? Well, it really boils down to a critical, systematic process and the professionals who act as the guardians of financial integrity, the auditors.
Okay, let's dive right in. Before an auditor even thinks about looking at a single number, they have to ask a really big question first. Should we even take this company on as a client?
So you think the first step is all about the numbers, right? But nope. It's actually about managing risk. Before anything else, auditors vet a potential client by first looking in the mirror. Do we have the right team? Can we stay completely independent? And only then do they turn their focus outward and scrutinize the client's reputation and its management.
And believe me, this is not just a rubber stamp process. It's a two-way street. If a potential client has a kind of shady reputation, or if they try to put weird limits on what the auditors can look at, a good firm will just walk away. It's their first and maybe most important line of defense.
All right, so once the client makes the cut and they're on board, that's when the real investigation kicks off. And this isn't some random fishing expedition. It's all planned out with, the precision of an architectural blueprint. The audit plan is all about strategically figuring out where the biggest risks of things going wrong might be hiding. They have to understand the pressures of the client's industry. They keep a sharp eye out for transactions with company insiders, and they figure out if they need to bring in outside experts. They're basically creating a treasure map to find the potential problems.
Now we're getting to what is, I would argue, the single most important concept in all of auditing. The one idea that really shapes this entire journey. Materiality?
So, in plain English, materiality is the line in the sand. It's the threshold that separates a tiny little typo from a deal-breaking flaw that would totally change how you see a company.
Let's use an analogy here because it makes it super clear. Think about baking a cake. If you forget, say, a pinch of salt, well, it's probably no big deal, right? The final product is still a cake. That's an immaterial error. But what if you forget the flour? Yeah, now you've got a problem. You don't have a cake, you have this sugary, eggy mess. The entire outcome is altered. That is a highly material error, and it's exactly the kind of thing auditors are trained to hunt for.
And this isn't just guesswork. They have a whole method for this. First, they set a big picture materiality number for the entire company. Then they break that down into smaller, tolerable amounts for specific accounts. And finally, at the very end, they add up all the little errors they found to see if together they cross that big line.
So how do they land on that magic number? Well, it's not pulled out of thin air. They use these established benchmarks. For a stable, profitable company, using a percentage of pre-tax income makes a lot of sense. But for, say, a tech startup that's burning through cash and isn't profitable yet, total assets might be a much better yardstick.
So let's put some real numbers to this. Imagine a company has $42 million in pre-tax income. The auditor might use a 5% benchmark. You do the math, and you get $2.1 million. That's it. That's the materiality threshold. Any mistake or a bunch of mistakes added together that's bigger than that, it's officially a big deal.
So after all of that planning, all the testing, all the number crunching, the journey finally reaches its destination, the final audit report. You can really think of this as the company's financial report card.
On one end of the spectrum, you have the best possible outcome, an unmodified opinion. That's basically a clean bill of health. But on the other end, you have the adverse opinion. And that is a massive red flag. It's the auditor basically saying the company's books are just plain wrong.
And this is where it all comes together. See, the final verdict comes right back to that idea of materiality. If an auditor finds a problem, say the company isn't following the accounting rules, the size of that problem determines the opinion they give. A tiny, immaterial issue? No problem, you still get a clean report. But a really, really big, highly material problem? That's what leads straight to that dreaded adverse opinion.
So, okay, we've gone through this whole journey, but why should you, whether you're an investor, an employee, or just a customer, why should you care about all this behind-the-scenes stuff?
Well, it's because this entire complicated process is designed for one person, you. It's built to give you a solid, trustworthy foundation for making your decisions. It takes these mountains of complex financial data and boils them down to a clear, independent verdict you can actually rely on.
So, understanding this whole journey, from that very first handshake with a client all the way to setting that materiality line, it gives you the power to read between the lines of a financial report. You start to really appreciate what that final signature from the audit firm represents. It's not just a name, it's a whole story of investigation, judgment, and ultimately, integrity. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. The next time you see an audit report, are you just going to see a signature at the bottom of a page? Or are you going to see the entire rigorous story that's standing right behind it?